Honorable members, good afternoon. Actually, good evening. It's been quite an action-packed day. The sunshine will be setting in a few hours, but we have some key presentations, as I'd mentioned before we went for lunch, from the NSSF, the Uganda AIDS Commission. We have our honorable members of parliament representing persons with disability who will be introduced to you and are going to be speaking to you, giving you some insights in a few minutes from now. Welcome back from lunch, and thank you for streaming back in to the conference room. We'd like to kick off as quickly as possible. But just a few reminders. There's a Speke Bank ATM card that was misplaced yesterday and is still in our custody in case it belongs to you. In case you misplaced a Speke ATM card, please get in touch and you can get it. Next week at Parliament, from Wednesday to Friday, 8th to 10th of July, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. in the Parliament Conference Hall, the East African Community Week is going to be taking place, and all you honorable members of parliament are invited to participate in the activities. It's a 3-day activity. You are invited to participate in the ESC week that will take place at Parliament next week. On the 16th of July, the Catholic Parliamentary Chaplaincy invites the honorable members of parliament to a high mass that will start at 5 p.m. in the conference hall. That will be Thursday, 16th July. The mass will be led by the Bishop of Nebi Diocese, Right Reverend Constantine Ruping. Honorable members of parliament are invited to attend because they'll be commemorating the feast day of St. Thomas More, who is the patron saint of government leaders and civil servants. Honorable members, we have been seeing the QR codes that have been being displayed, but in case you found it cumbersome to scan, especially the one for the training materials, the ICT team has already created a folder on the workspace of your iPads called the Induction Seminar for members of parliament. So when you just open your iPad workspace, you'll find that folder there, and all the training material from day one, Tuesday up to today, the sessions that we've had so far has already been put on that folder so you can easily access it. But you are invited to please scan the QR code that has a monitoring and evaluation form for day 3 and day 4. That was yesterday, and today you're kindly invited to scan that QR code and fill the survey or questionnaire that is there, because we'd like your input on that form. Without further ado, as other colleague members of parliament stream in, and in respect of you honorable members who have decided to come back in very good time to take on this afternoon session, let me invite the director in the office of the Leader of the Opposition, Dr. Ruth Biona, to come and steer us through the next session. She will introduce the session chair. You're welcome, Dr. Ruth.
Thank you. Good afternoon, honorable members. Thank you for keeping time. I can see that you're already observing the etiquette that we were taught about this morning, about timeliness. Our session chair this afternoon is none other than Honorable Auma Linda Agnes. She's the Woman District Representative for Lira District, serving a second term. Can you clap for her? That's not a mean achievement. Honorable Auma Linda holds a Master in Agribusiness and Financial Management from Bir Tikendrat University in India. She's there for international. She holds a Bachelor in Business Administration from Kampala International University, and also holds a certificate in administrative law from Makerere University. She's well-rounded, well-experienced. She's been a chair of the Agricultural Committee. She has also been a chair of the Value Addition Subcommittee. Before that, she was a vice chair, Agricultural Committee, vice chair, National Women's Council. She has been the publicity for WOPA and has been a chair for NRM, Lira District, RDC, Amuru, chair, NRM Youth League from 2011, and chair, Youth National Council. I think she's been leading for more than half of her life. Honorable Auma Linda Agnes, the floor is yours. You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ruth, for the elaborate introduction. Honorable members, distinguished resource persons, and colleagues, good afternoon. Welcome back from the late lunch. Permit me to recognize the protocol in order. Due to time limit, this session will be marathon. This afternoon carries 5 items on our agenda. And I want to suggest, before we begin, they are not only 4 and 5, but they are related topics. Joined only by a timetable, but read together, they trace a single thread. Article 32 of the Constitution commits the state to affirmative action in favor of groups marginalized on the basis of gender, age, disability, or any other reasons created by history, tradition, or customs. And Article 78 gives that commitment institutional form in the composition of this very parliament. We will open with the most visible expression of that commitment, the representation of women in parliament. We will then widen the links to special interest groups more broadly, and we'll also close with other 2 tests of whether inclusion in this parliament actually secures a citizen's life outside it. That is the workers' old age through social security, and a citizen health through our national HIV response, and finally with Ebola. Each presentation will run and will be restricted to 20 minutes because we have 5 presentations. As per your timetable, we were having 4, but the organizers felt that since Ebola is a serious issue, you should also be informed about what government is doing and the status of Ebola in this country. We are well aware that in this session we were supposed to have 2 plenaries, but for time, we are not going to have plenaries. Because if you see from these 5 presentations, we'll finish even late beyond 6. So I thereby introduce session 1 of our first presentation, which is on affirmative action, growing the numbers, and strengthening women representation in Parliament. And the presenter is our own, a beneficiary of affirmative action, and I invite you, Honorable Laura, to come forward. Honorable Laura is a lawyer, a human rights advocate, and distinguished legislator dedicated to advancing disability rights, inclusion, and access to justice. She holds a master's degree in human rights and currently serves a second term as Uganda's National Female Youth Member of Parliament representing persons with disability. And members, this is unique. She has been re-elected unopposed. She's a polio survivor. As you're seeing, she uses crutches, but she has transformed her lived experience into a lifelong commitment to promoting the rights and dignities of persons with disability. She is the founder and board member of Legal Action for Persons with Disability, Africa's first legal aid organization dedicated to serving PWDs. Her leadership extends to national and international platforms, including serving as a deputy chairperson of the Parliamentary Committee on Gender, Labor and Social Development, and as chairperson of the Commonwealth Parliamentarians with Disability. Honorable Laura Kanusu is widely recognized for championing inclusive communities, human rights, gender equality, and the rule of law. Colleagues, let's join hands in welcoming Honorable Laura. Honorable, the floor is yours. You're welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable members, allow me to stand on the protocol that has already been established, because I have only 20 minutes. I first of all want to thank the clerk and his team for entrusting me to make this presentation out of the so many able women in the room, and even those who are not in the room. And I want to thank the chair for that very kind introduction. She forgot to say that I am legally married and I'm a mother of 3. That's my biggest pride above everything else. So my presentation today is about affirmative action, growing the numbers and strengthening women representation in Parliament. And I know that I'll speak within the time that has been allocated to me. It's a very sensitive topic because the system of affirmative action is at crossroads. There are different schools of thought. One school of thought says it's not strong enough. Women have not done what they're supposed to do within their reserved seats. The other school of thought says they have done enough and they should be scrapped. So for those of us who represent women in Parliament, this is a very, very crucial time for us. We shall just move first. I will straight away go to the rationale. The 1995 Constitution introduced affirmative action with 30% reserved seats for women at local government and 1 woman district representative in Parliament. This system was designed as a temporary measure for only 10 years, and it has never been reviewed since 1995. We have there global frameworks that you can read through. Now, my presentation is extracted from the PhD thesis of the Honorable Peace Mutuzo. And I would like to encourage, especially the women members of parliament, to please look out for this document and read it. As we are seated in parliament, enjoying ourselves as members who represent women, someone is out there doing research and saying things that may not be pleasant, and yet we have the opportunity to make the laws. So I'd like to encourage you to read that PhD thesis by Peace Mutuzo. You'll get the in-depth of my presentation. So the global framework, CEDAW, Beijing Platform for Action, Maputo Protocol 203, all those speak to representation of women. Now, the next slide is about stagnation, despite the gains. Despite the fact that we have gains as women, but we have also stagnated. If you look at the statistics, 33% women in parliament have served for 15 years plus. Year of policy has never been reviewed since 1995. And women who won open seats from 2011 to 2021 are only 5.4%. And women who won open seats at district level in 2011 were 0%. Despite increased numbers of women parliamentarians, gender inequity persists across homes, communities, and political spaces. Critical concerns are identified in this study. One of them is reserved seat confinement. Most women contest only on reserved seats. Even senior women politicians remain on reserved seats rather than competing for open seats. And this is where the debate is. The school of thought that says, why should you serve for more than 4 terms, 5 terms on a reserved seat? Why don't you move on and contest on an open seat? Whether that is possible is for us to think about. 15 years of stagnation, women's representation has remained approximately 33 to 34% since 2006. And that we should ask ourselves a question whether the gains are going higher, or are we remaining in the same place, or are we actually going down as women representatives? Policy review gap, the affirmative action policy, as I said, has been there for over 31 years, and it has not been reviewed. And I think that we have the mandate, because we make laws, we amend laws, we can amend the constitution, and I think that as the 12th parliament, we might need to think about whether we want to review the affirmative action, especially for women. I know my colleague will talk about the other special interest groups in general. Legislative resistance, bills affecting women's issues have significant resistance in parliament. And I'm sure those of you who have been there before, you know that the bills that touch on issues of women have been shelved for so long. And yet, we say we are women representatives. What is the problem? Why are the bills that concern women's rights not passing as fast as the others? The other one is about the methodology. I will not go so much into that, but in this research, at least 38 MPs were interviewed, and 80 councillors were also interviewed, and all political parties participated in this research. Now, the limited awareness of affirmative action policies. In this particular research, only 62.5% of local community members were aware of policies promoting women's participation. Most only knew the Constitution's general voting rights, non-specific affirmative action laws, and at parliamentary level, awareness was equally low among MPs, with some women MPs unable to name any policy that brought them to parliament. And I want to just pause and say that when I read this, I was a little bit discouraged that this is coming out of research, that we can be members of parliament for women and we're not aware of the laws. In my understanding, I think that there are basics that a member of parliament should know. And as a woman representative, yes, you're voted by the men as well, but you're called a woman member of parliament. That means that your biggest constituency is the women. So it's sad to see the statistics here where they say that 42.8% of women could not name any affirmative action policy, vis-a-vis the men at 5%. One of the things that I want to encourage us women is that we should, and most of the speakers have talked about it, find something that you can put your head to. Be a resource, especially if you represent women. Even when they wake you up at 2 a.m., you should be able to talk about women's rights. I'm not particularly a women's rights activist, though I represent women. But one of the things I know, and I'm not claiming to know so much, is that even if you woke me up at 2 a.m. and asked me anything about disability rights, I would tell you out of my sleep. That one I'm very sure. You can't get me off guard regarding disability rights, disability laws, or anything. So this is the same thing that I want women to embrace. They can't ask you who brought you to parliament, which policy, which law, and you begin to not speak properly. And that's the reason that in most cases, when as women with disability, when we are invited for media spaces, we don't take that advantage of media space because we are afraid to speak or because we don't have the information and the knowledge to speak about the issues. So the key findings, most respondents only knew general voting rights, National Gender Policy, Equal Opportunities Act, and Women Councils acts were virtually unknown. And the percentages there of the women who could not name the policies. Surprisingly, Arua was more aware. Jinja, Mukono, the urban areas were actually least aware. And in most cases, we think it's the urban areas that know more. But in this research, the urban areas were actually more aware of these rights than the urban ones. Civic education is conducted only during elections, too late for meaningful impact. And I think this is why we are struggling with elections, why elections have become so commercial, why it's very difficult to come and stay in parliament, because civic education has not been done. Now, there were some perceptions of women policies. Positive perceptions, communities perceived women politicians as respectable leaders, as you can see the percentages there, women who deliver and community respect. Now, exceptional leaders, some of them said women are exceptional leaders, 40%, capable leaders, 29%, seen as vocal, influential, effective, role models, etc. And they gave examples of the Right Honorable Kadaga and the Honorable Kazibwe. The negative ones, among these were negative views, and they were the minority. Seen as immoral, 59.5, stereotyped as abandoning family values when you become a politician. Seen as weak, 27.8, perception that women lack leadership capacity. Seen as the threat to men, 12.7, fear of challenging male authority. These negative perceptions, though held by a minority, create significant barriers to advancement. Now, when you see the statistics, the positive looks bigger and the negative looks smaller, but it has a great impact. I remember an example of the Honorable Naomi Chivaju. I think she didn't return. She told us a story when she was contesting on an open seat, and her opponent told her, when they were at a lorry, the opponent brought a lorry and told her, if you are a man, climb that lorry. And those of you who know Honorable Chivaju, she was a person who loved to wear trousers, not dresses. So she thought for a bit and said, I think I can climb the lorry since I'm wearing my trousers. And the male counterpart had bought goons to take pictures of her as she climbs the lorry under her skirt. But then she thought and said, no, I'll not climb. When she got the microphone, she said, first of all, I am not a man. And you're saying if I am a man, I should climb the lorry. I'm not a man, I'm a woman. I cannot climb a lorry. But also, the job I'm asking for to go to Parliament and represent women does not in any way require me to climb lorries. And that was the end of the rally. So you can see the negative perceptions and also how difficult it is to compete on the open seats. Now, the impact on gender relation in communities, women as partners, you can see it there, increased respect, it's there, accepted as leaders, 23%, you are all accepted there. Effect on women's status and needs, this is about the impact we have created as women, and that's where the other school of thought says there's no impact. We are not creating any impact. That's what the other school of thought says. That you see there's no need for these seats because we are not seeing the tangible impact of women in our rural areas because of the representation. So women's economic empowerment was ranked highest. Women politicians facilitated circles, increased women's voices, improved service delivery, and rights awareness. There were some positives about the representation. But as you can see, the percentages are very low. So they give a window for the people who want to say that representation of women is not necessary. Now the challenges, the structural barriers, individual barriers, inferiority complex was most prominent. Women MPs also reported low self-esteem for fear of public speaking. And I want to say at this point that I think we need, as women parliamentarians, to continue learning. We can't just stop at this induction. It's not enough. Even as if you're coming in as a first-timer, take a seat. First, take your seat. I know we all want our constituencies to see us talking, but please take a back seat and learn. Learn procedures, read a bit, understand how Parliament works, and be able to speak. But also, go for conferences, go for meetings, make yourself empowered, so that when you stand to speak, your voice is not shivering. And I know when you're in our constituencies, we all speak very well to our voters, but it's different when you come to Parliament, because there will be people to shut you down there. You start talking and people say, what are you talking? And then your esteem goes down. But I think that we can learn, we can continue to learn, and it's very crucial that we continue to learn. Now, the cultural barriers, traditional beliefs that leadership is only for men, husbands and family discourage women. The Honorable Nankamira talked about it here. Economic barriers, unequal access to economic resources compared to male counterparts. I know the male will say there are women who are richer, but the numbers speak louder. Now, the legal and political barriers, this is very crucial because limited civic education, no term limits on reserved seats. So this research actually proposes term limits on reserved seats. It does not propose term limits for open seats. And we need to think carefully about that. Why is someone proposing that there should be term limits on reserved seats and not on the open seats? The argument could be, you serve and also allow other people to serve. But what about the open seats? Don't we also want them to serve and give a chance to other people to serve? In my understanding, it could actually help more women compete on the open seats. Because if I am competing with a first-timer who is a man, it's not like competing with Ndezi who has been in Parliament for 7 terms. My colleague Ndezi here. How do I compete with Ndezi who has been in Parliament for 7 terms and I'm coming as a first-timer? So I think the issue of term limits should cut across. It shouldn't be put on the only the women representatives. So these are things you need, because these are legal and policy frameworks. And who makes those laws and policies? It is you. And you're here. Before you know it, someone will come with a bill and say, term limits for reserved seats. You have not read, you have not done research. You go back to your constituency and you cannot compete favorably with the men. Strategies, what should we do? Again, they are saying introduce term limits on reserved seats. This is the view of the research. It's not my personal view. Amend the constitution for 50 to 50 representation. I think for me, that speaks too much to what I believe in. I think 31 years is enough for us to rethink the 30% reserved seats. What if we amend the constitution and go for 50-50? The ball is in our hands because we are the lawmakers. Regulate political parties to fund women, hold political parties accountable for gender parity. We have said we are the ones who are poor when it comes to elections as women. But our political parties do not support us more extra than our male counterparts. And I think our political parties need to rethink their policies. If we want to strengthen women leadership, if we want to increase numbers as political parties, then I think we should think about funding for women. And please, the men, don't hate me. But this is the research. I'm not the one who did this research. But I think that the women need to be supported financially. Also, the education needs to continue. In conclusion, affirmative action has increased women's visibility and voices in politics with positive community perception and some gender relation improvements. However, transformation is low. The 30% reserved seat system has advertently created a ceiling rather than a pathway to equal representation. And this research also mentions that the special interest group placement sustains perception of women as vulnerable rather than equal. So some of the things, integrated gender equality, we need to do this, conduct regular civic education, like I said, amend the constitution and advocate for 50-50. I think we are there. We can do the 50-50. Introduce term limits for everybody, not just for the women's seats. I don't know why people are after the women's seats. That for us, we should only serve 2 terms and go home, and then for them, they can serve 100 terms. I don't know the logic, but this is what is in this report. Economic empowerment, as I said, and holding the political parties accountable. So finally, I would like to say that the reserved seats, in my view, are still necessary. But I think we need to go for the 50-50. That's my view. But also, like I said, as women, we must give reason for people to say, yes, the women are doing something. When we go to our constituencies and we're doing all these things, building boreholes, building churches, mosques, what exactly are we doing for the women? What exactly are we doing for the women? So we need to think about that. Our representation should have a very clear and tangible, should reflect on the people that we represent. If women are still living the way they used to live 30 years ago, then we cannot justify our representation to anyone. People will say we just came here to eat. But I think that if we work in our constituencies and we empower women, then we will have a ground to say, look here, before we got these representations, we had this, and now we have this. So I want to say that if our work does not reflect on the people that we represent, we shall be rendered useless. And that's when the other school of thought will come up and say, these seats are no longer important. I listened to a youth, one of the ladies who was contesting for youth MP. And she said, the women members of parliament have specialized in fighting younger women. When a woman raises in a district to stand for the youth position, the first person to fight that woman is the woman MP of that district. Because the feeling is, this one who has come for youth MP is going to serve for one term, and then she will come for me. So you see why people have reasons to say, abolish this system? So I think if you're working for your people and you're doing what you're supposed to do, you leave the rest to God. You don't need to fight anyone to say the young woman is coming up as a youth, let me fight her, and therefore, so that she doesn't come for my space. She may not come for your space, but someone else will come for it. And on that note, I want to end with this quote by Pumla. It's Pumla E.N. Kisosonkole. When a door has been opened for one person, that person should put her foot down there and let the door remain open until all the others are in to bring the others forward. But I also want to say that as I conclude, Chair, and I think I'm still within my time, as women representatives, we also need to think about the intersectionality of women. We are not on the same level as women. And for me, it breaks my heart when I see, for lack of a better word, discrimination against women. For example, in your constituency, you can't tell me that a woman with disability is on the same level with a woman who has no disability. But do you ever take that into consideration? A rural woman cannot be the same as a Kampala woman who has a job, who is a corporate. They cannot be on the same level. A widow who has 7 children whose father has abandoned those children cannot be on the same level. So we must think about the intersectionality. Where do we come together as women without discriminating in terms of class, in terms of status, in terms of all these things? Now, we are saying that the men have a bigger advantage financially than we do. But I have seen women who are using this against their colleagues who are women. When someone has more money, they will use it against the person who has no money. And now we are saying it's only the men who are using it against us, but we are also using it against ourselves. So you have more money, you're contesting with someone maybe who doesn't have a lot of money, and you're saying, this one cannot do anything, they don't have money. I remember when I was contesting the first time I came to Parliament, one person told me, you who has Sienta, I had my small Sienta car. I said, you who has Sienta, how do you expect to win an election that is national? Will Sienta take you to Karamoja and Kisoro? Are you here? You can hear that kind of language. And this is from a woman, it wasn't from a man. So this kind of, the imbalances financially, yes, the men have an upper hand, but as women who have been empowered, we need not use it against our fellow women. I want to thank you, and may God bless you.
Another round of applause to Honorable Laura. Thank you so much, Honorable Laura, for that wonderful presentation. This push a question to us. We have been emancipated. Are we really walking into the emancipation? Are we feeling it? Are we appreciating it? You heard from her statements how we fellow women ridicule each other. Instead of joining hands, and from the research she presented, we are below average. And there is already a proposal that this opportunity given to us should be taken away. So it's a call upon all of us. The Constitution has blessed us with this emancipation. But if we don't hold it, we might lose it. So this gives us a food of thought that we should widen up our space. But we should do it carefully. Because on my own analysis, there are other women that have been given space. They're abusing it. Yet we are trying to fight the stereotypes. Once we are given this space, let us utilize it well so that we give space for other women to also reach where we have. Another thing, we have created awareness about gender equality. I feel that the rural is aware about it, but it has come back to us like a knife, especially the corporate women. There's a lot of mental health. Because of the stereotypes, they are dying with their problems. And as members of parliament, especially benefiting from this emancipation, we should help our colleagues in the silence so that they also enjoy it. Honorable colleagues, we now turn to a wider canvas. The inclusion of special interest groups in parliament, opportunities, and gains. Our next presenter is Honorable Alex Ndezi. Is one of us a legislator, a human rights advocate, and disability inclusion champion with extensive experience in public service, governance, and social development. He's currently serving as a member of parliament representing persons with disability in Parliament of Uganda. Honorable Ndezi holds postgraduate qualifications in human rights, international relationship, as well as master's degree in human rights from Makerere University. Throughout his career, he has provided strategic leadership as former chairperson of the National Union of Disabled Persons of Uganda, that is NUDIPU, and currently serves as chairperson of both the Uganda Parliamentary Forum for Persons with Disability and the Uganda National Association of the Deaf. In Parliament, he has chaired the Committee on Gender, Labor, and Social Development and served on several key committees, widely respected for his leadership, advocacy, negotiations, and community mobilization skills. Honorable Alex remains a passionate advocate for the rights and empowerment of vulnerable groups. As he's coming to present, let's take keen interest in these special interest groups. What are the opportunities? What are the gains? And I also call upon Honorable Sarah Namulondo, you needed how to help a colleague. Honorable Sarah Namulondo needs a vehicle number UBG 683W. So if you know, you can move to the person that brought this sheet to me so that the matter is handled. Honorable Alex Ndezi, as colleagues join me in welcoming you, the floor is yours. Honorable members, let's welcome Honorable. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chairperson, for the very wonderful introduction. Honourable Ministers, members of Parliament, staff of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen. My presentation is focusing on the inclusion of special interest groups in Parliament. Maybe before I begin, I want to say sometimes I'm a confusing character, especially when interacting with new faces. So I want to say, apart from being called Alexi Ndezi, I'm also profoundly deaf. Biologically, we mean someone who is deaf and cannot even use a hearing aid. Second, I'm also post-lingual deaf, meaning I acquired deafness after learning the language of the environment. Once upon a time, I was like you, with very good hearing. But one night I went to sleep, and by morning time, I could not hear at all. But that is another story. If we are chatting along the corridors, you can ask me again. I communicate via sign language, and I can also speak. Why? Because of the post-lingual character of my deafness. All members, I think it's very important to congratulate you upon your victory. Welcome to Parliament, congratulations. It is not easy. It must have been a big goal. And it keeps getting tougher after every 5 years. So be prepared for another tough battle 5 years from today. Mr. Mkwaya and Dr. Mkwaya and Honora have mentioned some of the points I wanted to raise. So I'm going to be brief. The first thing I want to say is that inclusion is something we must deliberately do. We can't pretend that some people are doing it for us. We can't pretend that it will happen on its own. We must deliberately do it. The motto of inclusion combines 4 keywords: leaving no one behind. Every day I wake up in the morning, I say, leaving no one behind, because I'm very passionate about the subject of inclusion. So, all members, my appeal first and foremost today is for you to prioritize inclusion in your legislative mandate, in your budgeting mandate, oversight mandate, and representative roles. It's very important to deliberately do this and to think about it every day. The way we think about God. Because the alternative to inclusion is exclusion. And this is very dangerous. As you may note, the framers of our Constitution made this a constitutional obligation, a constitutional mandate, under Article 35 of the Constitution and 32 as amended. So we have a constitutional obligation. We sought to uphold and defend the Constitution. We have a constitutional obligation to ensure that we implement the principles of inclusion as contained in the Constitution. Second, all over the world, it is now recognized that it is impossible to attain sustainable development without inclusion. You cannot. Because once you include certain people, these people will sabotage you and you never move forward. In this practice, we are trying to say, everyone, regardless of background, regardless of abilities, regardless of identity, is valued, respected, and equally supported. Me and you want to be valued. Me and you want to be respected, and also to be supported. The same thing applies to our voters. They want the same in return. For this to happen, we must make sure that people have a voice, platform, fora that makes it possible for them to put forward their needs and challenges so that we as leaders can address this. I'm talking about special interest groups, but as you know, there are so many interest groups. Right now, I'm talking about the special interest groups recognized by the Constitution and represented in Parliament. These are 6. Women, you are very fully represented with a powerful team. Youth, the 5 MPs, for young people, very bright people, very experienced people. Workers are also fully represented. Older persons, the same. People with a lot of wisdom. And with possibilities, of course. The tribe of possibilities, they're also fully represented. And the army. So, I will confine myself to these 6 categories and make a few remarks in regard to each of these categories. We begin workers. The data, you know. The main challenges, you know, with respect to workers. What we as MPs must do is to get familiar with the basic laws, providing for protection and promotion of rights and welfare of workers, so that we're able to sensitize our communities to be able to know how to benefit from these existing laws. For instance, Employment Act. What does it say? How can it help our people? The Unions Act, the Constitution itself. We have National Social Security Fund Act and others. It is our duty to make sure that we internalize this and make sure that our people can benefit from the provisions of these laws. So far, I must say, good laws have been made, but implementation is still a challenge. Implementation is still a challenge. I appeal to members of the Parliament to identify the gaps in legislation and initiate bills within the areas of competence. Remember, we also have staff in Parliament. I hope the third Parliament will remember to take good care of its workers. Also remember, me and you love to say MPs, but we are also workers. Unfortunately, vulnerable workers. MPs, you are very vulnerable, you don't know. Whenever you try to talk about your welfare, the press and the public has no sympathy for you. When you go for burials, people say contributions. Buy a coffin, etc. But when you talk about getting something in the pocket, people say no. They say you're good. Now we are saying we have just entered Parliament, but wait. Within the next 2 years, there will be people in the constituency fighting to bring you down. So, even we MPs are vulnerable. What am I trying to say? Please never shy away from discussing your welfare. Despite opposition from the press, despite opposition from other people, we also need to think about our lives as well. There is a specific issue I would like to mention also in relation to external labor migration. External, or commonly called externalization of labor. Around the time of the 9th Parliament, there were disturbing reports regarding abuse and exploitation of the rights of our brothers and sisters in the labor migration countries, especially in the Middle East. You must have read about these reports. Also, I remember at that time, Parliament decided to put a ban on the labor migration. But the ban failed to work. Why? We have so many unemployed people in this country. People are looking for jobs. You can't stop them from seeking jobs in foreign countries. There is a good friend of mine, an MP, who prefers to call labor migration as a form of modern slavery. I don't want to mention her name, but prefers to call it modern slavery. I would say no, for two reasons. You may have something to say, your own idea, but for me, I believe we cannot ban. We cannot stop our brothers and sisters from seeking jobs in other countries. The reason is being simple too. We don't have enough jobs. Second, I would like to give you some data. Last year, Uganda earned a record of 2.4 billion from exports of coffee. Coffee alone. 2.4 billion United States dollars. At the same time, we got 2.5 billion from remittances from workers in the diaspora. You can see. From remittances, we got 2.5 billion United States dollars, but from coffee, 2.4. Means as a country, the money we get from these remittances is much more than the money we get from coffee. So what is my appeal to you? My appeal to you is to request you to support externalization of labor with focus on ensuring that it is more decent. We make it more decent by enacting regulations and rules and by entering into agreements with the countries where our brothers and sisters are working as of now. The countries make it possible for us to use our embassies to protect the rights of our brothers and sisters in those respective countries. Now, young people, youth, majority of the voters, I don't want to repeat many points. I only want to mention two things. One, many programs have been put in place. Past Dr. Mode, Youth Livelihood, Munyonyo, etc. But we have a big challenge with the monitoring. Therefore, I appeal to you to ensure that you are fully involved in monitoring of these programs. But to monitor, you must get required information from the central government. Central government must provide you with a list of the beneficiaries in every constituency. This is a request to our ministers, especially for gender, labor, and social development. You must have a list of beneficiaries, names, groups, and contact persons in order to be able to carry out effective monitoring, effective oversight role. Without this information, nothing can move forward. So me and you should continue to demand that we get information on the groups and other beneficiaries of these programs so that you can carry out effective monitoring. From experience, I have discovered something disturbing. Many people were told, go and monitor. But during the selection of beneficiaries, we are not involved. Because we are not involved at approval stage, at selection stage, when we go through monitoring, people say, okay, thank you for coming. But this is a government program. How do you come in? Where is your contribution? Therefore, I want to propose that, if possible, we explore ways of ensuring that we can be part of the process of approval of beneficiaries of the programs, so that we have leverage. Older persons. Advocating for older persons is advocating for ourselves. If we are okay, all of us, me and you, will be older persons in the future. Therefore, I appeal to you to ensure that older persons are clearly articulated in your work plan and supported at all levels. Right now, we have a program called SAGE. Over the years, we have been looking at the challenge regarding funding this program, especially the question of the age of eligibility. Right now, the rules say to access the 25,000 shillings per month, you must be 80 years and above. But very few of us reach that age. Therefore, in the last parliament, we were advocating for reduction of age of accessibility from 80 to 60. 60 makes more sense. 80, many people would have died. So please support this idea when it comes up for debate in the plenary. When talking about older persons, remember, if we are lucky, in future, me and you will be former MPs. If we are lucky, me and you will be former MPs and very old people and very vulnerable. For some of us who have been here for many years, many times it looks miserable to see our former colleagues suffering. I'm using the word suffering. I want to say the situation of former MPs in this country is very, very pathetic. Majority of our former colleagues needs to be supported. But how this can be done needs to be deliberated on by Parliament as an institution itself. We don't want to see you in a pathetic situation in future after leaving Parliament. And then you regret that you never made a provision for instance pension scheme to make it possible for you to live a dignified life. For people with disabilities, I have two things to say. We have done a lot so far. As we're going to have done a lot to promote the rights and welfare of disabilities. However, a lot more still to be done. I challenge you to get familiar with the relevant laws and policies relating to the rights and welfare of disabilities, and work hard to ensure that these are implemented. Now, women, my sister Aurora already articulated this, but I have two proposals. This morning, there was an argument on the relationship between RDs and the district women MPs. I remember this matter is not new. During the days of Right Hon. Rebecca Kadaga. The matter came up several times in the plenary. And the minister in charge of the presidency was directed to produce guidelines summarizing the relationship between women MPs and other districts, especially at this level, including at the time we have Women's Day celebrations. The important thing to emphasize is that you MPs are elected by the people. It is not good for you to be challenged by some other people also. Example, Women's Day is your day. You should be in charge and you should fight for this. A general comment regarding the economic empowerment projects for women, people with disabilities, and other categories. One general comment. Corruption manifested in various ways. In some districts, district officials say, okay, we are going to give you 10 million shillings. But upon getting 10 million shillings, you will give us kickback of 20% to million shillings. I have evidence regarding some of these practices. Then in some districts, our officers create fake groups. Fake groups, the money comes, but it disappears. So me and you should work hard to ensure that we effectively monitor and ensure that the funds we approve are put to good use. Last, about UPDF and security agencies. The men and women in uniform stays awake so that we can sleep. They play an important role in ensuring that we are safe. We cannot have development without peace and security. Their roles are very important. But as MPs, we need to take personal interest, especially in the welfare of our brothers and sisters in security agencies. Example in housing. You know Swahili better than me. There was a term that people used in the past to refer to housing situations. Something like mama, injia, pore, pore. So some people say, UPDF not vulnerable, but my friend, welfare issues, some of the welfare issues are not in good state. So we should take an interest in these issues. Also, we should know that security is expensive. Many times we compare and say, defense is taking around the share. But everything has a price. So please, as MPs, let us continue to support our army during debate on budget and other important provisions. Also remember, there are some friends who have been saying that UPDF should not be represented in Parliament. For me, I say no, I oppose this because the historical circumstances leading to representation of UPDF in Parliament are very clear. And as you have noted, they are a group that requires special attention. So, my friends, to emphasize some few points, as I come to the end, I draft appeal to you again. Let us work hard on inclusion. Ensure that roles are inclusive of needs of special interest groups. Our monitoring and oversight responsibilities should reflect inclusion as well. We need to promote access to opportunities for all. Remember, we said our motto is leaving no one behind. Thank you so much for your kind attention. Every morning we say, leave no one behind. Thank you.
Honorable colleagues, another round of applause to Honorable Alex. Thank you so much, Honorable Alex. Honorable colleagues, as per our timetable, this afternoon we are going to have 2 plenaries. This was the first session, whereby 2 presenters were presenting on affirmative action, and we were supposed to have a plenary. But due to time constraint, we have decided to have a marathon presentation. As we talk right now, we are remaining with 3 more presentations. Bear with us. No, as I stated earlier, according to the timetable is 2, but we have also on Ebola. That timetable has been amended. Before we do that, we are back from lunch. I was seeing members. Let us have some wellness break as I invite Honorable, our Coach Bob, to at least bring back the energy a bit. Let's all rise up as Coach Bob.
Let's just do 2 minutes, simple body movements, no music, don't you worry. No music, don't you worry, just put up your hands. We need to energize ourselves.
Coach Bob, I hope you're hearing.
I've heard. Okay, DJ, have you heard? Okay. Okay, we start counting as the music comes. 1. Together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Give the smiles. 8, 9, and 10. Put your hands together. We are going to turn around our bodies like this. We count together. 1. Together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. DJ, give us a 1 minute. Bounce where you are. Simple. We have Dr. Chava Inze here from Ministry of Health. He knows what it means.
You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you.
We're singing.
I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you. I worship worship you. You are here, healing every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, turning lives around. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, mending every heart.
Singing.
I worship you. I worship you. Hey, we make a miracle working, promise keeper, light in the darkness. That is who you are. Hey, we make a miracle working, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You wipe away
DJ,
all
cut.
tears. You mend the broken heart. You're the answer to it all. Jesus.
Brother! Out. Brother! Out. Clap for yourselves.
Thank you. You've energized us. Thank you so much, Coach Bob. Members, back to business. Back to serious business. Honorable Daisy, you have really elaborated more about the special interest groups, the opportunities, and the gains. Honorable members, I'm repeating that since we have congested programs, we are not going to have plenary. But it won't stop you from sending in your questions. We'll ask the organizing team to ensure that those questions will be responded to in writing. But this will depend if our next presenters could keep time, and if we see that there is a bit of time, we'll accept some 3 questions or response to the questions that you've maybe written and brought to the respective presenters. To help us focus our time, I would like to put these 3 questions to us. 1, beyond seat numbers, what would strengthen representation look like in concrete terms? 2, why does guaranteed representation in Parliament not always translate into proportionate representation across our MDAs? Because this should be not only in Parliament, but it should cut across. 3, how should this Parliament carry forward the resolutions already before us from the 2nd Women's Parliament and from the calls we have had for an audit of disability representation on public boards? These questions point clearly that even if this affirmative action is there, we are seeing it in Parliament, but in other MDAs we are not there. So it's upon us as members of Parliament to forge a way forward for its full recognition. Next, as you're seeing from the timetable, we are now moving from representation to security. Specifically, the security of citizens that is built over a working lifetime. Our next presentation is social security and national development, the roles and responsibility of a legislator. Our presenter is Mr. Patrick Ayota, the Managing Director, National Social Security Fund, Uganda. Patrick joined NSSF in July 2011 and is currently the Managing Director. He's also in charge of the fund's strategic functions. He was previously the Chief Finance Officer, a position he held for 6 years until November 2017. Patrick has been at the forefront of various projects at the fund, which is steered successfully, including the strategic function setup and the rollout of balanced performance scorecards. He was named runner-up at the 2017 National CFO Award organized by SCCA. Prior to joining the fund, he was the finance director for Barclays Bank Uganda, and he has extensive experience in accounting and finance management that has been attained in various roles in Uganda and USA. Patrick is a certified public accountant. He holds an MBA from the University of South Carolina and a Bachelor of Science in Finance from Liberty University, Virginia, USA. Through all this experience and qualification, that's why he climbed the ranks up to the Managing Director of NSSF. Honorable members, this is a resourceful person that is in charge on the workers' old age security. And it's very important that we listen to him carefully. Even if there are no plenaries, please send your questions to him. The team will post on our different forums to ensure that you're responded to accordingly. Honorable Patrick Ayota, the floor is yours. Come and give us that insight about NSSF. Thank you so much. Let us give him a round of applause to welcome him. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. I know I stand between you and your break time, but it's a privilege and an honor to actually stand before you and allow me to say congratulations. I know it was a bruising election exercise you went through, but you won and you are here. I also want to acknowledge, I know some people who are here. One of them was my director, my boss. She's now my honorable. That is Director Annette Birungi. Congratulations for seeing. It was good to see you here. So I'm just going to go straight to the presentations for purposes of make sure that we keep the time. This is a bit about this fund. The fund basically is divided into 3 periods. There was a pre-1985 period. At that time, it was just a section in the Ministry of Gender and Labor. Then the Parliament passed the Act in 1985, and we used that Act until 2022, that Parliament amended the Act. The key major differences between 1985 and 2022. 1985, basically, when the Act was set up and established, it was just looking at people in formal employment from employers with more than 5 employees. The rest were basically not covered through that. In 2022, the amendment basically did 2 things. It dropped the threshold to 1 employee, and then to open the savings to the voluntary people. And I'll give you a bit of stats and see, since 2022, what has happened on the voluntary side. The governance, basically, I'm not going to spend it. The most important thing about the governance, when the Act was amended in 2022, we report to 2 ministries. We report to the Minister of Finance for all the investment decisions we make, interest declaration, and reserve management. The rest of everything else, including appointments, we report it to the Ministry of Gender, Labor, and Social Development along the way. Why we exist as a fund? We exist to make lives better by making savings a way of life. That's basically our purpose. And everything we do, we kind of want to make sure that this whole thing about savings becomes part of people's DNA. And becomes very imperative because of one thing. So I'm going to give you statistics that you will be surprised at. In about 25 years ago, most of Ugandans wanted to get their money out because at that point, the law said that you can only come to get your money when you're 55, and that's why the majority of the people come. It also makes allowance for disability, for survivor, and everything. But majorly, people would wait until 55 to come for their money. But 25 years ago, the lifespan of a Ugandan with AIDS and everything was around 42 years. So it did not make sense that people should die before they get their money. But thank God, and this is where sometimes the stats are there that we see, that as a country, we've made a lot of progress. Today, the lifespan of a Ugandan, for female, 68 years. For males, it is 64 years. Now, there's a reason why women are outliving the men. You men, you know, sometimes you keep too many things in you, and those things can kill you. But that's not the most important thing. What's interesting is the UN says there's what's called longevity span life, beyond your lifespan. In Uganda, it's 15. So somebody who basically turns 64 can live for another 15 years, 79 years. And I challenge you, go to your villages. You're going to see that in your own villages, there are more 80-year-olds than there used to be. Most 77-year-olds, your uncles, your aunties, are living longer than they used to live in that case. Now you think of this. Somebody retires or leaves active employment at 55. And the next 25 years, they have to live, they have to survive. And that's why it becomes imperative that as a nation, we do everything we can to make sure they have savings to take them through that time. Because at that point, it's harder to get a job. It is hard to start a business and succeed. The only thing that can sustain somebody is the business they started or the savings they had along the way. Basically, one of the things that we want to do as a fund is we call ourselves to one with the social security provider of choice. That somebody goes to bed at night, remember, say, thank God I saved the necessary for that purpose and has helped us. And there are 3 promises we give to our members. 3, safety. We keep a member's money for 25 years or 30 years. We want him to know that this money will be available to him or her when they become eligible to get it. Not only do we keep the money that the member gave us, that the employer gave us, that we also invested, but we've added enough on that money that has preserved the value. So, safety. That is a promise to give our members. And by the way, members of parliament, let me assure you something. Many times we mistake the money we hold. The money we hold belongs to members. They belong to somebody. It's not like tax that all Ugandans own. Because when the URA comes and taxes, all of us Ugandans own it. NSF, the money belongs to members. And because we have that safety promise to the members, we are very careful how we invest and where we invest. We promise the member convenience. This informs our IT. Whenever they're available, they interact with us, we make it easier for them. The last one is called empowerment. We couldn't do that until 2022 when the law changed. One of the saddest things we have as a fund, we have somebody's 300 million shillings, and his wife is in ICU, or the son is in ICU. But because the law never made a provision for the spouse, it turns out that we cannot help that member at all because we will then be breaking the law. So empowerment allowed us to open up the voluntary space. And the most interesting thing, you won't believe, the law was passed in 2022. We basically were able to bring the regulations around it. It was passed in November 2024. Between November 2024 and now, as of yesterday, 95,000 members have saved voluntarily, and they've saved 195 billion shillings. And it kind of defines that thing that Ugandans don't want to save. No, Ugandans save. It's just that we need to give them a place to save well. Some we save in land, we save in cows, we save in goats, we save in chicken. But what you want is save in money because it helps you do the things that you want. These are our values. I won't go too much into it. Center to it is integrity. Because one thing that one member should do is to trust us with their money as we do that. And this evidence of what we call the Trust in Members Fund. Look at the bar graph. The bar graph tells you the number of members over the age of 55 who have left their money with us. I mean, if you look back in around, it was maybe around 98,000 towards the end, and it has been growing. Regardless of what happens, that people who should take their money have decided to leave their money with us because they know that it's safe and helps them do the things that they want. This is our footprint where we are, branches, and how you get in touch with us from central to eastern to western to northern Uganda. This basically tells you about what we are. 3.6 million members. We have about 118 employers who have come, and this is how they can access us through these branches. Our contribution to the economy, we have about 13% of GDP. That's the savings. Keep that number in mind because it is going to make a lot of difference when we discuss certain things. We have basically saved about 17.39 trillion shillings in this economy. Many of you may not know, but 80% of our investments, and today, as I'm speaking to you, the fund's about 32 trillion shillings, Uganda savings. About 80% of that we've lent to the government through government bonds. Now, many of you may say, what? You lend this government money? Yes, it's the safest investment you can make because Parliament, basically, you consider it sovereign loan. Whenever Bank of Uganda auctions these bonds every month, everybody fights for it. The banks fight for it. The foreigners fight for it. We also fight for it. And normally when we come through, it helps reduce the interest rate because we are local in the things that we do as we are. This is kind of when I mapped up, when you look at the ATMs the government has, the places we've done basically to show you that the fund is part of the ATMs, whether it is tourism, agro-tourism, we'll talk about that a bit, whether it is the minerals, and whether it is science and technology. We are investing in all these areas as part of the economy that we have. Now, how do we create value for the member? In two areas. Now, bear in mind this one. Members contribute 5%. The law has forced the employer to contribute 10%. Now, for some of you who are in finance geniuses, we call that a 200% return on day one. It's one of the best investments any can make that. Somebody puts 5 shillings, the law forces the employer to put 10 shillings that very day, and it belongs to the member. So if you're out there and you've got brothers, cousins who are working for some employers, and they are not contributing to them, contributing for them, basically they're cheating the member. And if you are here and you have employers, please contribute because it matters a lot. As I told you, you'll be amazed. We pay 6 types of benefits. From age benefit, the 55 we talked about, to survivor when somebody has passed on. Over the last 6 years, we've run the numbers. Only 3% of the benefits we paid to survivor beneficiaries. In other words, members had died. 97% is paid to members who are alive. So for some people who think that, me, I'm not going to get that money. By the time that money comes, I will be dead. No, you have a 97% chance you're going to be here, or your member's going to be here, and you need to be able to do what? To save, so that it does matter in that area. This is where we put the money. So we get the money and we invest it. 5% is in real estate. We have about 17 in the stocks and exchange, different types of stocks. And like I said, about 76% of that money we've lent to the government. The best place we can put that money there. And if you don't really realize what happens, you Parliament just passed the budget recently, and you passed the budget with a gap. And you're expecting that that gap is going to come from debt. And most of it is domestic debt. And basically, NSF is supporting the budget as we do this along the way as we see it. Now, so we get the money, so we invest it, we use a little bit of overhead, and then the balance of the money we give it to the member and put it on the account as credit. If you look at, these are the benefits we offer. I will not get into that too much, but I just wanted to show you something that has happened over the last 10 years. The blue line, that line you see, which is the blue line, is the total revenues we've made over the last 10 years. Now, when we invest, we earn money, and we earn revenues in that case. If you look at the end of last year, which is June 2025, we basically earned 3.5 trillion shillings in earnings. The red line shows you the costs that we incurred to generate that revenue. And the green line tells you how much of the interest we gave back to the member. And this is one of the most efficient, and I kind of say this with a lot of pride. Many times we look at Uganda, and you're thinking that everybody in Uganda is a thief. No, sir. Not everybody in Uganda is a thief. Not everybody in Uganda is corrupt. NSSF is managed by Ugandans, from the chairman of the board to the driver. And if you look at the end of June 2025, last year, NSF was 26 trillion shilling fund. As I'm talking to you, NSF is 32 trillion shilling fund. It has grown by 6 trillion shillings in 1 year. And that is Ugandans doing this. So don't give up on the country yet, because it is important that we actually do that. Now, one of the things that you see, so when we give it, remember I told you that one of the things we have to do is we make sure that we preserve the value of the member funds. The blue line is the interest we put on the member account. The green line is the inflation over the last 10 years. And you can see we've paid more than the inflation in the member's account. And that's how the member basically gets to preserve that. Now, what we did was we normally plan in a 10-year strategy. We do 10-year strategies. The last 10 years was basically last year. All the targets that we set in 2015, we pretty much met those targets by the end of 2025. In 2015, this was our target. We're a 5.5 trillion shilling company. We wanted to be 20 trillion shilling company. Our customer satisfaction around 69%. We wanted it to be 95%. We're processing benefits in 36 days. We wanted to process it in 1 day. And we pretty much hit those. The most interesting thing is, and this is where you can find a little bit about the Ugandans, that when we set up those targets in 2015, we didn't know COVID was going to be here. For 2 years, the country was pretty much closed up. We didn't know we were going to appear before some of you in parliament and to rag us. We didn't know midterm would come and take some of the money out. And yet, because guys worked so hard, we hit 20 trillion shillings 18 months ahead of schedule. We hit it by June 2025, and that's why we're 26 trillion shillings by the end of June 2025. And those are things that we think actually happen. So now when we look at the things that we have across, that's done now in Vision 2020, 2035. But there are challenges we face. And these are the challenges we see that we have to deal with as we look at the next 10 years, where you are going to be very pertinent in the things that we are talking about. I'll not go to, the key challenges basically is this, coverage. Right now, all about 13% of Ugandans, working Ugandans, are saving with the fund, and yet we are living longer. So the challenge for us is we need to increase that percentage to 50%. At least they save with us. We think if we do that, we'll be able to grow the fund to 80 trillion shillings by 2035. So growing it from 26 trillion last year to 80 trillion shillings. But we do it without giving up on service levels. We do it giving the best of services that you may want along the way. This, I'll tell you something, this is very pertinent for us as a fund. If you can see, the green bars are contributions coming in. The brown bars are benefits we are paying out. And as you can see, the benefits we are paying out are catching up with the contributions coming in, which means if we are not careful by 2031, the benefits we are paying out is the same as the contributions coming in, and the fund has begun to die. So for our own survival, we have to figure out the things we need to do to make it work. And then why we must all save, and this one, guys, this will kind of help you soon. And we take an example of Vietnam. This was Vietnam back then. Look at Vietnam. It was an agrarian society. So is Uganda. It was emerging from devastating wars. So was Uganda. Its major export is coffee. So is Uganda. Had revolutionary leadership. Now you guys may, I was saying this one day and say, yeah, I will tell you something. President Museveni, a man who can convince his colleagues that with 27 guns, he can begin a fight and overthrow a government in 5 years is revolutionary enough. So we also had a revolutionary leader and then gifted in national nation. This is Vietnam. You could basically replace Vietnam and put Uganda, and you're describing Uganda. And look at the reforms they went through. They liberalized the economy. So did we? We are looking to attract FDI like they did. We have deliberate policy on industrialization and value addition and export-led growth. These are the history of Vietnam and the interventions they made. And we made the same kind of interventions in this country like Vietnam did. This was Vietnam in 1986. That's the countryside. If you look on the right hand, no, if you look on the left-hand side, that's Hanoi, the capital city. This is Vietnam today. That's the countryside, that's Hanoi. Where's Vietnam now? If you look at that graph, around 1989, Vietnam was about $7 billion economy. GDP was $7 billion. If you look at where Vietnam by 2008 is $550 billion economy. When the president says he wants a 500 GDP economy, he's not picking it out of the air. If you notice in 2005, when we began our structural adjustment, that's when things kind of went off. There are things that we did that Vietnam never did. Right now, we are at about $69 billion. We are where Vietnam was in 2005. And yet, we had the same starting point. In 1989, our GDPs were about the same with Vietnam. But they did certain things that helped in that case. So what did they do? Two things. There was state intervention in agriculture. Now, members of parliament, if you remember, one of the things that kills Uganda, 80% of Ugandans are in agriculture. And over the last few years, the last 25 years, we've done everything we think we should do. NADS came through, PDM now is in place, OWC came into place. We've done everything we've done, but we missed one thing. For you who are economists in this house, the mistake we made as a country, we thought that if you fix the supply side of agriculture, the farmer needs quality seeds, the farmer needs irrigation, the farmer needs warehousing. If we fix the supply side of agriculture, we fix agriculture. And yet every year the farmer harvests and asks us the question, where are we going to sell it? And back then we used to have cooperatives that were the intermediary between the farmer and the markets. Vietnam kept theirs. And the farmers have markets for coffee, have markets for all those things and so on. And you'll realize when I come there what we need to do in that case. The second thing Vietnam did, they increased domestic long-term savings. They raised the contribution rate for their NSF from, about that was 15% to 32%. And the country began to save. Why was that important? Because all your Asian tigers, whether it is South Korea, Vietnam, China, Taiwan, Singapore, Malaysia, became Asian tigers when their long-term domestic savings hit 27 to 30% of GDP. Why? That means they could use their own funds first to run their own development agenda and not rely completely on external funders, which you know is a problem for us. Why? Because what happened when we didn't like the LGBT and we passed laws, the World Bank said, I'm out of here. IMF said, I'm out. They've come back. But it was a disruption because we didn't have our own money to rely on in that case. So part of our goal as a fund, if I just show you that graph, it's a bit busy. 1989, the long-term savings to GDP was about 10%. That's Vietnam. The GDP per capita was around about $700. If you look at now towards the end of 2024, they're saving about 35% of their GDP, and the GDP per capita is about 3,500. So it matters if a country can save. Now, the thing is, if you think about it, today, the only long-term domestic savings we have is NSF. So at about 13%. We have about 11% if you add the other things. So if we need Uganda to basically become self-sufficient, as we look at 2040, we better accelerate our savings. And that brings me to what I think your role as a legislator is supposed to be. How do they deliver more savings? This is our target. We said we are going to increase coverage 50%. We've gone into informal sector. We'll serve our members satisfactorily. We hope to grow to 80 trillion. I'll give you an example of what that informal sector means. Many of us look at borders, and in our minds, these are the most erratic, most informal, most indisciplined characters we have in the society. What we found out was very interesting. Most of the border riders belong to a stage. That stage has a president, has a treasurer, has a secretary. They have a copy of their national ID on that stage. They have their phone number. Sometimes they even have the LC1 letters on that stage. So we're talking to the association president. Say, how do we reach them? He sat with these border leaders and explained to them how they use their money when they leave the house in the morning. He says, you leave your house in the morning, you stop by and you take a chapati and coffee or tea. At 10 o'clock, you stop, you take another porridge. You've now just spent 4,000 shillings. At lunch, you go to Mama Nalongo's, you eat 4,000 shillings worth of food. Then at 4, you are taking another porridge. By the time you had complete for them, they're eating between 13,000, 14,000 shillings a day. So he said, the challenge to them is, I want you guys to save 1,000 shillings a day. Save one chapati a day. His target is to have 1 million border borders. We have 2.5 million border borders in the country. To have 1 million border borders, save 1 million shillings a day. Now, honorables, that's 1 billion shillings, that's 360 billion shillings a year, which can help us grow this economy as we look at it. So there are things we're trying to do that we think will drive us there. One of the things that we talked about is as we do this willingness, as we do this savings plan, the one thing that we want to do is maximize contributions, bring as many people as we can in here. So let me just touch a couple of things that you'll find that we're doing. If you've got something in your constituency, possibly, we have this program called High Innovator. We are basically partnering with Mastercard Foundation. We ran it for 4 years. And we are funding early startups. The businesses they've been trying to do it. We've done 438 of them. And interestingly enough, 94% are still existing. They've hired over 30,000 people who have become our members. And they've contributed. So we're going to extend this program to 2030. So if you have got somebody from where you are, you think you have, we'll come and talk to them and see if they can qualify for that program. And we do it across the country. The other thing that I want is this. We are intervening in agriculture because we want that farmer to save with us. And we're going to intervene where his pain point is. So NSF plus other shareholders have come together and we have created a company to create a market for farmers. As I'm talking to you now, we are negotiating with off-takers from as far as China, as far as Poland, as far as Kenya. So that the next time we go to the farmer and say, please, we have a contract for soybean. Who signs up? So the farmer now the farmer begins to plant and to grow, knowing who the buyer is. And out of those earnings, he saves something for his day. And that's how we'll be able to grow that and bring the things that we need. If you look at this on maximum value for members, how many of us know of friends who have been here? They were rich. They had buildings. They passed on. And 6 months later, or 6 years later, the assets are no more. One of the things we're going to bring to Parliament, please consider it, is help us amend the trust laws of this country. The trust laws of this country were created in 1959 to manage land that was being held in trust by the Catholic Church, the Protestant Church, the Muslim Church. It was never meant to help people manage for legacy. So we want to change that. We want to bring that law to you coming from Kenya. We borrowed some from Kenya. So now somebody who has got these buildings in, we can begin to help them manage it for legacy. That what do you want to be 100 years from now? And you can manage that, help that person manage it for it. It will drive two things. If I pose the question here, and I've always had an issue, how many of you went to Makerere? I know, a lot of you. How many of you have donated even 1 shilling to Makerere ever since you left Makerere? And most of you go say, they're wasting time. Let me challenge you. Harvard is not great because Harvard was great 20 years ago. Harvard is great today because it is great today. Its alumni supports Harvard. If you do not support Makerere, the degree you have will not be worth the paper written on it. Look at the ranking of Makerere over time. What has happened to it? But if you begin to say, okay, you know what? Here's my assets, manage them for me. But every year, give Makerere at least 10 million shillings. For life. For your wife's life, for 100 years. We begin then to manage that in terms of the things that we want in that process. So when we talk about the things that we do for us, these are the things that we want to do this year. My appeal to you is going to be 2. I think I'll just go through here and see what we want to do. As I can see here, most of the things that we do are linked to my ask, so that I can finish. So there are certain laws, some amendments we want to bring to you. Please, the trust laws, consider that. Many economies have tax laws that are very favorable towards retirement. In NSF today, the taxman taxes contributions, taxes income. And by the time the benefits have come, the taxation have eaten there. We want that tax regime to change. We are an investment firm and want to make sure that some of the things that we're doing can help us along there. So the amendments that we'll bring across to you. But this is my last thing to you. You're a new member of parliament. Please, don't just rely on the savings you have with Parliament. Open up a voluntary account with the NSSF. It's called Smart Life Flexi. Right now, we are giving a rate of around 13–14%, which is as competitive as the unit trust. Trust me, that money will come in handy. One of the things that Honorable Ndezi talked about, and the Honorable Ndezi was here sharing some of the pains people have. He talked about strengthening the workforce. Do you know that we can go to Namave, and in the morning as you walk to Namave, you will see like 1,000 people are walking to those factories. We go in there and try to audit, and you ask for contracts, and they give you a payroll that has 10 people. Because what they're doing is they're paying them by cash 5,000 shillings in the morning. They're not keeping records of it and so on and so on. And the strengthening of that is going to help us. Minimum wage will help us because it is a benchmark and things which we can do if we want to have social security along the way. And on days, I really appreciate what you did because I think that helps us along as we do that. So when we bring the laws to you, please help us on your own. Make sure that you also save because it will matter a lot as you do that. I think I'm at the end of my presentation. Yes. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Mm-hmm.
From the reactions, with the hand of applause that you've given Mr. Patrick Ayota, it means his presentation was so interesting. May we again join hands and thank him. Mr. Patrick, NSSF issue is a general concern to a caring citizen of this country. And there's no one who is reaching 40 without planning for old age. So it's incumbent upon us, as you have had the serious, ambitious target that NSSF is having for this country, that is by reaching the informal sector. And it's incumbent upon us to ensure that we help in mobilizing and helping our informal sector to understand the importance of saving however little it is. He has also brought in his appeal to us, the policy issues that he needs Parliament to help them in addressing. And on your behalf, I would like to extend this to Mr. Patrick, that Parliament will always welcome you, because at least they have understood the target and how NSSF is progressing. This initiative is very important. The strategy is really critical for the future of this country. Honorable members, very soon we'll be joined by the Right Honorable Speaker. But as is normal character, it does not like to be more complex. So he will come and sit, and he doesn't like people rising up to welcome him. But I felt that you should know. And on his arrival, we can just rise up, welcome him. He's our speaker, and we love him. We're moving to the fourth presentation, that is the second last this evening. we have moved from social security. We're moving now to health security. That is the Presidential Fast Track Initiative for Ending AIDS as a public health threat in Uganda, and it will be presented by Dr. Vincent Bagambe. He's a public health specialist with over 25 years work experience in HIV and AIDS, TB, malaria, and reproductive health programs. He started his career as a medical doctor managing clinics and wards of patients with malaria, TB, HIV, and other communicable diseases. Vincent currently works with Uganda AIDS Commission as the Senior Manager, Policy, Planning, and Strategic Information, a position he has held since February 2019. Is responsible for developing and monitoring implementation of the policies and strategies for delivering a multisectoral HIV response in a manner that it can sustainably be mainstreamed into national development programs. Previously, he worked in several senior management positions that include Quality Assurance Manager and Acting Coordinator, Global Fund Focal Coordination Office of Ministry of Health, Uganda, where he coordinated teams to submit grant application, grant making, implementation, monitoring, and reporting. He also worked as a technical advisor, PEPRA HIV/AIDS, for US Department of Defense HIV programs implemented in the military populations. He was also the M&E manager, Baylor Uganda, a civil society organization, and program officer, HIV, TB, and malaria projects in Uganda prisons. Vincent holds a master's degree in project management, a master's degree in public health, and a bachelor's degree in medicine and surgeries. Among the short courses, impact evaluation of population health and nutrition program by Public Health Foundation of India, HIV and AIDS fellowship program offered by Makerere University School of Public Health. He's a well-experienced man and a gentleman fit to give us the strategies on how Uganda is to respond to HIV. Dr. Vincent, you're welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, honorable members, and the commissioners of the 12th Parliament. I'm very pleased to be here. I feel very privileged to be in front of you to give you these updates. As you heard, my name is Dr. Vincent Bagambe. If you look at the handout, the Director General, Dr. Nelson Musova, was supposed to make this presentation, but he has not been able to because he wasn't feeling well today. So I bring you his apologies, and I bring you greetings from Uganda AIDS Commission. This evening, this is what I would like to share with you. I'll tell you briefly about who we are as Uganda AIDS Commission, where we are as a country in the fight against HIV, the status of the epidemic, as well as the response, what the President has promised to Uganda towards fighting HIV, what we call the Presidential Fast Track Initiative to end AIDS as a public health threat, what challenges we face. We will also have a glimpse at the funding landscape, because that's an area we would like you to give us a hand in, and the other areas where we think as Parliament you will support us. So who are we? We are a government institution which was established by an Act of Parliament, CAP 206, and we've been in existence since 1992. And our mandate is to provide overall leadership to the national HIV response. We are located under Office of the President. We work very closely with the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Health being the provider of services, while we coordinate all stakeholders beyond health towards one goal, presidential goal of ending AIDS. So as I said, we provide leadership to the multi-sectoral response. And we envision a state where Uganda is free of HIV and its effects. When we were constituted, we were given functions, and there are many. We basically formulate policies. We ensure that there are proper plans and coordinate stakeholders towards the implementation of those plans, and that the plans are aligned to the national development plan. We identify obstacles to implementation and work with stakeholders to remove or overcome the obstacles. We make sure that HIV information is disseminated to all stakeholders, not only to Parliament, but up to the grassroots, including the Wananchi. And one of the tasks that were given, the second last bullet, is to find a cure for AIDS. So that one is still work in progress, but we are working with scientists, and we believe that God will find a way. But for now, there is no cure yet. Next slide, please. So why are we here? I am here with my colleagues, by the way. I came with the head of prevention, Dr. Dan Byamukama, maybe you stand, and the head of partnership coordination, Mr. Tom Eti. So the two, if I can't answer your question, be sure that they will be able to answer. So we are here to speak to you, members of the 12th Parliament, to appraise you on the status of the national HIV response, but also to highlight threats that may derail us from achieving our goal. Now, as a way of a background, the first case of HIV in Uganda was identified in 1982. That was the time actually the NRA was still in the bush. And this was in Rakai district in a place called Kasensero. By the time the NRM came into government, the world was at a loss. No one knew what to do about HIV, while the problem was spreading like wildfire, and people were dying. Being diagnosed or identified to have HIV was a death sentence. So we have made progress, and certainly not only Uganda, but the global community, the scientists, the social workers, the religious community, together we have made progress until now, when having HIV has become a chronic disease, a chronic problem. But Uganda stands out as a global model for HIV control. And this is because His Excellency the President, immediately he came into power, he identified it as a problem. He was open about it, but emphasized prevention, 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 using the then available approaches, which was the famous ABC. So by the time the scientific approaches, using condoms, now the antiretroviral drugs, being able to test and know that this one is infected and this one is not, and being able to identify the other opportunistic infections that cause people living with HIV to fall sick or die, all those came and found that Uganda had reached somewhere. And indeed, that's one of the reasons why His Excellency is recognized global, worldwide, as a key leader in the fight against HIV. We want to appreciate your predecessors. Parliament has been instrumental in passing HIV-related legislation. We have an HIV Prevention and Control Act. Of course, we have the Uganda AIDS Commission Act, and we have a number of policies to which you have contributed to. And we appreciate the advocacy and mobilization that you have been doing. So where are we now as a country? This slide gives you a snapshot of the HIV status in Uganda. We have a total of 1,500,000 people living with HIV. And this number has stagnated. One would say, but if you are being successful, why isn't the number reducing? The stagnation of this number actually is a sign that we are managing the problem, because now the people who are already infected are receiving care and therefore living their full lives, productive up to old age. And therefore the number we keep adding on. The number that the figure we want to keep an eye on is actually the new HIV infections. And here, honorable members, is where you should put your eye throughout your term in Parliament. We estimate 37,000 new HIV infections, at least as of the data of 2024, December 2024, the report compiled in 2025. And of these 37,000, the majority are women, 21,000 out of the 37,000, and a significant number is actually adolescent girls. So of the 21,000, 15,000 are young girls, 15 to 24 years. That is the population that we need to work together to protect so that new infections don't happen. But also take note on that third row that new infections that are occurring because of transmission from mother to the child, to the babies, is still high. We see 4,700 babies being infected by their mothers. Then the other figure to note is the AIDS-related deaths. We estimate that 20,000 Ugandans each year die of AIDS-related death. Now, to note is that whereas the majority of those infected and those getting newly infected are women, when it comes to death, more men are dying than women. And this is because of the poor health-seeking behavior. The technology is there to protect the people, but people are not coming, especially the men. Talk to the men, talk to your voters who are men. Yes, we want the women to keep up and also to get all the women, but it is the men where mobilization is faced with challenges. The next slide actually shows you that although the picture might look good, that we see 37,000 new HIV infections, Yet we used to see almost 100,000 in a year. The picture is not uniform across the country. So this breaks it down by region. You will see that in terms of people living with HIV and AIDS, in terms of the HIV prevalence, and in terms of new HIV infections, some regions, the numbers are high, and some regions like Karamoja and West Nile, the numbers are low. The regions with the high numbers are south of Uganda. We should say Buganda region because North Buganda is number 5. Acholi, Ankole, Lango, and Kampala. All those are above the national average in terms of prevalence. Where the prevalence is low on average, it doesn't mean that there are no pockets of infections. We actually note that we have what we call hotspots in the cities. You'll go to Mbale and you find that it has hotspots. And if you test young people in those hotspots, new HIV infections are there. So we shouldn't be deceived by the averages and we think that the other regions are okay. But the variations do indeed occur. Now, what are the key drivers for HIV transmission? Honorable members, I want us to note that the technology for fighting HIV is there. We have prevention methods. In fact, recently, there is a new drug that has proven to be so effective in preventing HIV transmission. But we also have the old approaches, condom use, HIV testing, circumcision, and others. So why are new infections still happening and why are people still dying? And the challenges are those key drivers: multiple sexual behavior, transactional sex. Anyone who has ever had sex in exchange for money, that's a very high-risk sex. People who want to indulge in sexual activity when they have under alcohol and drug abuse. Of course, the gender inequalities, and I thank government for the economic empowerment programs that it has, but we need to make sure that those programs do reach the young people to fight poverty, the vulnerable people, to fight poverty and to fight vulnerabilities. And last but not least is stigma. I will now rush through the remainder of the slides. I don't know how many of you, especially, I know that the honorable members who are doing their second, third, and so on, Bisanjas, you must be knowing the Presidential Fast Track Initiative. We've been engaging with you. For the new members, we will actually be sharing with you these documents. But in 2017, His Excellency the President committed to the people of Uganda and to the global community that by 2030, we want to end AIDS as a public health threat. And this is what it means, that none of the people who is infected with HIV is dying because of AIDS-related illnesses. We are putting people on treatment and they all survive. That we minimize new HIV infections to a level where we are no longer worried about our children or about our spouses and our loved ones that they could get infected. And that we have zero stigma and discrimination against people living with HIV. If we can achieve that status, then we can say that we have ended AIDS. But how are we progressing in terms of the Presidential Fast Track Initiative? Next slide, please. In the 1990s, the prevalence of HIV, the highest recorded in Uganda was 18%. What this meant was that for every 100 people in a room, 18 were likely to be living with HIV. Right now, this has been reduced to 4.9. So in a room like this, still out of 100 people, you will find 5 testing positive. We have been able to reduce new HIV infections. In 2010, we were seeing over 100,000. They have now reduced to 37,000. That's a 61% reduction. And we've had a 63% reduction for AIDS-related death. In terms of services for HIV, we've been able to scale up. 85% of Ugandans living with HIV have been tested, have been put on treatment, and are virally suppressed. The viral load is so low that the risk of dying is low. But the 15% is now the problem. We need to bring those also into the fold. We don't want to be like the herdsman in the Bible who left the 99 and looked for the one. We have to keep taking care of the 99, but also go out and look for the one and to make sure that all the 100 sheep are in the fold. Now, quickly, the key challenges: funding, especially funding for essential HIV prevention services. We have prevention services. We know they work, but they have not been scaled up to reach everyone. So we need resources to do that. We have been largely over-relying on donors, and now there is a lot of uncertainty from donor funding. We have to shoulder our funding, our epidemic, and these resources have to come from government largely, of course, as well as the in-country contributions, the philanthropists, the drives, and so on and so forth. But the main source must be government. And we know that you do appropriate the resources. Addressing social-cultural issues, the drivers of the epidemic that are in our nature, in our culture, where we must do mindset change. And communities still have and practice high sexual behavior. We have many opportunities to take us to the end of AIDS. As I said, we have a new drug that was also researched here in Uganda as well as other countries, and it was proven to be very effective. Challenge is how to roll it out to make sure that the people who need it are receiving it. Not the people who want it, not the rich parliamentarians or civil servants like me, but that poor woman in Owino, in Katanga, who is vulnerable. We need to get it to them. Integration of HIV into primary health care. As you know, the Ministry of Health has taken on the policy of integrating HIV into other programs. And as Uganda AIDS Commission, we are also working with other government departments to mainstream HIV into their development programs. This is an opportunity for us to enhance sustainability of HIV response using our local or domestic resources. There are new digital technologies. Now we must learn how to use them to reach the young people. Because the young people are on TikTok, I understand there are other programs that I don't know, Snapchat and others. We must go there and take the messages so that we are able to reach them. And then we must use the communities, especially the community of people living with HIV, to offer the services. This slide maybe I'll give a sentence or two about it. We have mapped what we need to implement the HIV response in the next 5 years, and also mapped the resources, what the government of Uganda has put in the MTF for the next 5 years, what the donors have promised to put on the table, and we note that each year there is a gap of 20 to 25%. And these resources, as I said, must come from Uganda. Next slide, please. So we have developed a strategic plan for up to 2030. This strategic plan is aligned to the National Development Plan, the fourth National Development Plan. As I said, our goal is to end AIDS as a public health threat. And to achieve this, it means that we must reduce new HIV infections from 37,000 to less than 10,000 in the next 4 years, to reduce AIDS-related deaths from 20,000 to less than 6,000 in the next 4 years, and to increase financing for the HIV response to 80% locally resourced. As it is now, we have been at less than 20%. My last slide, Honorable Chair and members, is a call to action. As legislators, we are calling upon you to support an effective HIV response. Working with you, we must make sure that we leave no one behind. So if we come with an amendment of any legislation that we think is hindering access to HIV services, we appeal for you to embrace it. One of your functions is the appropriation. We appeal for adequate resourcing the HIV response, especially HIV prevention interventions. But your other key functions include oversight, advocacy, and asking for accountability. We would want you to extend those roles to also ensure that the HIV response receives adequate oversight in all corners of the country and in all departments of government, that you advocate for us to receive additional funding to fill the gap that the donor is leaving, and that for every penny that is raised for HIV, full accountability is provided. But also we know that in the community, there is a lot of respect for your word. Would like you to support in the mobilization and educating Ugandans out there to come and utilize HIV services. Government has put these services everywhere across the country, up to Health Center 3. You can receive an HIV test, they will put you on treatment, and they'll be able to monitor whether you are doing well on that treatment. So let's mobilize the people, but also let's tell the young people, because they don't know that actually HIV is real. They did not see the picture of HIV that me and many of you saw. So help us to mobilize those ones. As I conclude, ladies and gentlemen, government of Uganda is committed to ending AIDS as a public health threat by 2030, and Parliament, as the elected leaders, you have a big role to play in providing leadership, in mobilizing resources, and in guiding the population towards this goal. For us to transition from the donor-led response and to help people get out of the hunger of donors to self-sustainability, we will need to walk this journey with you so that our response is fully domestically financed and we are not living on the whims of external donors. I thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vincent, for giving us a strategic response towards HIV in this country. Honorable members, we are all aware that the donor financing is shifting. And for us to ensure that this response comes to its accomplishment, we need to come up with a domestic mechanism and a realistic one on how we can narrow this funding gap as a nation. Because HIV has come to stay with us. And we cannot fold our hands as the donor funding is narrowing. Honorable members, we are now moving to our last presentation. And it's going to be short because it's urgent, it's an emergency, and as stakeholders in this country, it's important for you to know what government is doing. In this house, we are also having the Minister for Health, our own Honorable Minister Charles Ayume is present. And where we are moving, especially, we have been discussing for the last 40 minutes issue related to health. And before Dr. Daniel comes to present, our dear minister have requested for our 2 minutes so that he comes and highlight key issues that would support the presenter about Ebola. Honorable Minister, you're welcome. Congratulations. And we are grateful because you are really fit for that office. For our new colleagues, he has been our chair for the Health Committee. And now is the minister. Asante sana.
Good evening, colleagues, in your respective capacities. I have already been introduced. I know we are pressed for time. I'm not going to waste your time. The issue that we are going to present is about the National Ebola Outlook. I know it was not on the program, but we spoke to the Right Honorable Speaker and the Clerk to Parliament that this is an issue of national concern. It's an emergency. We cannot run away from it. And as a minister, I noticed there was a lot of mistrust, misinformation. So we thought there was no better time to bring an assembly of 529 members of parliament up to speed than during this induction. I will now hand over to the Director of Public Health, Dr. Daniel. But I also want to tell you, colleagues, let's treat Ebola with the utmost and profound importance and attention. I have listened to many myths, but as he will present, our neighbors across, to drive my point home, when your neighbor's grass-thatched house is on fire, then you should be concerned about your grass-thatched house. Across the border, things are not appearing as rosy as they look. Unfortunately, we have been lumped together with DR Congo, and as government, we are trying to tell the international community that these are two sovereign states. So when you're reporting, report for Congo and report Uganda separately. Finally, whatever we do, whichever announcement we make, we first have to inform His Excellency the President. Even me as a minister, I cannot come out and start making declarations. We have to go to him, he's the one in charge of the country, and then he gives the nod. So otherwise, thank you very much. I'll now hand over back to the Master of Ceremony.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. You know, there are other restricted statements that can be made only politically, but not technically. That's why the minister had to inform us. Our last presenter is Dr. Daniel J. Chabayinze. He's a medical doctor, epidemiologist, and public health specialist. His work focuses on improving quality of care, strengthening health emergency management, and advancing the control of neglected tropical diseases, communicable diseases, and malaria. He serves as Director, Public Health, Commissioner of Health Sector Partners and Multisectoral Coordination. He also represents Uganda in World Health Organization Pandemic Treaty negotiations and international health regulations. He's not searching. Amid his all experience that he has, globally and nationally, he's a fully married man and already a man of God. So there's no space. Doctor, thank you so much. Come and present to honorable members. Thank you.
Thank you for that very kind introduction. I know we are pressed on time. I'm wondering whether the person I gave my slides is able to load them. Whichever way, I will not be caught offside. If I have no slides, I'll still go ahead. Honorable members, allow me to start, if that's okay. It's going to be a little challenging to communicate to people at the end of the day talking about Ebola. The beauty is that my minister has already given me the opportunity and has introduced what Ebola is. Ebola is a very serious illness. It's very fatal, and it originates from wildlife to humans. It can be spread when you touch any body fluids of a human being, be it saliva, be it blood, be it sweat. I'm trying to see whether my slides are coming up. Be it sweat or excreta, feces or urine. Uganda has so far had 9 outbreaks. We are experiencing the 9th outbreak, meaning since 2000, we've had 8 outbreaks. This is the 9th. There's also good news that the virus is very fragile. Ebola virus can be destroyed by soap, chlorine, which is in jik, and also sunlight can destroy it. Allow me to talk about why do we call it different names. Whereas it's Ebola, Ebola is named after a river in Congo. And there are 3 types or more types, but we've had outbreaks from 3 types. And these then derive the names from where the outbreaks were first identified because they have some differences, like we have different tribes or races. So we have the Zaire, we have the Sudan, and then we also have the Bundibujo. Bundibujo takes its name from the fact that it was first isolated and discovered in Bundibujo district of Uganda. Allow me just to tell you about how impactful the previous outbreaks have been. The biggest outbreak we had in Uganda was in 2000, and it was, the epicenter was in Gulu. In that outbreak, there were 425 people who contracted the disease. We lost 245 people, meaning the case fatality was 53%. For every 2 people who got the disease, 1 person died. Then there was the Bundibujo, which was in 2007. That's when it picked its name. And it infected 131 people. Of those, 42 people died. Now let me quickly take you to the most recent one. That was in Mubende and Kasanda. In 2022, there were 142 cases, 55 died. What was different about the one in Mubende is that the government, the president, ordered a lockdown in those 2 districts. Despite the fact that we discovered the disease when over 40 people were sick, that geographical or regional lockdown helped us to cut the disease in a short time, even if it was able to spread in 8 districts at the time. You remember there was students who came to Kampala, there are people who came to seek divine intervention in a shrine, and they brought the disease also to Kampala. But the current, most recent in 2024, we had an outbreak which was purely in Kampala, and it was discovered in Mulago International ICU, and it had 14 cases, 4 deaths, and the case fatality rate, which is the number of people who die, where every 1 person in every 4 people died. Allow me just to give you the highlight now, and I think I'll be done, unless you have many questions. Oh, thank you very much. My slides are up. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so these are the numbers. We have had 20 confirmed cases. We have only to announce the cases if we have been able to confirm in a laboratory. So we've had 20 cases, 18 cumulative admitted, 2 died, 1 died before the outbreak was announced, before we had a chance to admit, and then another one died as they arrived in our treatment center. And cumulatively, we've been able to discharge 14 people. Now, that number has changed because we've been able to have another 1 person turn negative. So we only have 2 people on admission. This was supposed to be made on Monday, but 1 day later, we have better results. Now, we've decided to separate the Ugandan cases from those who are imported. This outbreak is very unique. It is an outbreak being imported by people coming for medical tourism. The people in our neighboring country seek care here. And because they seek care here, they have all come to be treated. And unfortunately, when they are discharged here, they call the people back home and say, in Uganda, there is a cure. Ebola has no cure. You are only given supportive management, and the trials we're using as medicine can relieve and support you. So we cannot relax and say it has a cure. Unfortunately, all the people we've treated in Uganda have recovered, as you will see. We still have 1 critical child who is not, we are still hoping that they will pull through. So you can see we have had 5 Ugandans getting infected, and they were all health workers. 4 were health workers in 1 particular hospital. Because, and I will not tell you the story, but I think you've all taken an oath of secret, because the hospital was not being forthcoming, and government was forced to close it down. So the 4 health workers got sick, plus the driver who was driving this family who came in as sick. So those makes the 5 Ugandan. All the rest of the sick people came in from Congo. So this outbreak is basically a leakage from Congo. Once the roof is leaking, however much you clean the floor, you'll still have to do something in Congo. Allow me to see the next slide and I'll quickly show you. What I wanted to show you how expensive it is to respond. You can look to the, so I've already given you the top column, but you can see that we had to get 836 contacts. Unfortunately for this disease, in a community, once somebody is in the community, in a single day, he comes in contact with over 25 people. So 836 people, either those who were on the same ward where the people were admitted, they are all contacts. All the health facilities that helped to do diagnostic, taking off blood, thinking it's malaria. So we should actually work and eliminate malaria because it makes our response difficult. Of those, I can confidently say we have only 5 left in our follow-up. And they have just 3 days or 5 days before we can say there are no more contacts being followed up in Uganda. You please couple yourselves because we are using the money government gave us. Previously, we depended on donors to respond. This outbreak, 90% of the money so far we've worked has come from government of Uganda. I think government of Uganda gave us about $5 million to respond to this outbreak. But probably my permanent secretary will speak better to that. Now, the next slide is also very important. Please, let's go on. Why announce the Ebola outbreaks? I have been at terms and pains to explain this. Now, I'm going to try and break it down in simple terms. This is a viral hemorrhagic fever, like all others, including Ebola. They are very severe disease and they are life-threatening. They have catastrophic outcomes to public health, fatality in terms of 90% of the people. In fact, you've seen in some outbreaks, everybody who got the disease died. Like the Luwelo outbreak, 4 people got the disease, all died. We have to proactively communicate and engage the public. The people of AIDS Commission have told you, the president, when there was HIV, the only tool we had was communication. He told people what to do, when to do, and the danger. So communication is so important for a disease when you don't have a cure. It's one of our lifeline. When you communicate early, you tell the health workers there is this danger. Make sure your guard in terms of PPE and protecting and infection control is high. Secondly, when you see somebody suspicious, don't think it's malaria, because you need to take travel history, who they have been in contact with. So all I'm trying to explain is that communication at this table becomes our lifeline for presenting the disease. And finally, there are what we call the international health regulations, of which over 95 states in the world have signed up. These international regulations require us to announce that you have an outbreak of a disease. For Ebola, 1 case is an outbreak. For malaria, you just say how many numbers have increased. So that's the difference. For cholera, 1 case is an outbreak. As long as the rate of infection and the countermeasures available are still limited, you need to alert the rest of the international community. If a country fails to announce, WHO can go ahead and announce on itself without consulting. So I think I have convinced you that it's important for our safety, for our response, that we need to announce what Ebola is. Now I told you about what the leaking house is. Just the next slide, I want just to show you a little what's happening in the Congo. Please, next. So that's Congo. Uganda announced the outbreak just 1 hour after Congo announced its outbreak. But look at the graph. Why? Congo was still managing the situation. You can't manage Ebola quietly. They are now talking about 1,200 cases, and I think the number has gone higher. 500 hospitalized. They don't have as many hospitals, but look at the number of people who have died. And next slide, please, let's go on and we show where the cases are coming from. So these ones, how to prevent Ebola and its spread, I'll talk about later. Let's go to the next one. Signs and symptoms, they're not any different from other diseases. The only difference with the current outbreak, bleeding has not happened outside the hospital. So if you're only waiting to see people bleeding, for Bundibujo strain, bleeding is not the cardinal sign, but vomiting, diarrhea, and a severe headache for anybody coming in the region is what we are thinking about. Next slide, please. So those we need to put out once there's an outbreak. We need to share flyers. I wonder how we can do that quietly. It's impossible. Good news. Ebola is a contact disease. You cannot get Ebola by sitting next to each other. As long as you don't touch, you don't greet, you don't hug. We can all walk in the same corridor, one person with Ebola, one without it, and you'll still be okay. It's not like when we had COVID. You sit next to me, you cough and sneeze, I'll get it. As long as I have not touched your body fluid. So intimate relationships can also spread Ebola. Unfortunately, when we use the same toilet seat, when we sit in the same seat where you have, that's why once somebody's been discharged from Ebola, we even have to burn their whole house mattress, utensils they've been used. We destroy them because we don't know how the contamination has happened. Allow me to have our next slide. These are the achievements for far in Uganda. There has been no onward transmission from Uganda to another disease. For the 9 outbreaks, there is no person who has said they got Ebola from Uganda. And it will not happen. Because once we list you as a contact, all those 83 people, we put their names on the no-fly list. So you can't access any exit terminal because we are still watching you. And why do we watch you for 21 days? Is because the time between you getting infected and the time when you can show signs and symptoms are 21 days. You cannot spread Ebola before you start showing signs and symptoms. You can be infected, yes. It's like having HIV and you have no sign or symptom. For Ebola, you must be sweating, you must be coughing, you must have headaches, that the viral load has gone so high. That's when you start spreading the disease. I'm waiting for my next slide. Okay. We have done some risk assessment. I think I'm done with my time. So this is the map of Uganda. Those dots are showing the concentration of the cases. You can see what is happening. Arua is where the people who came in Uganda flew in through. You know, they have money. They chartered a flight. I don't know whether you have that information. So we are not dealing with people who are marginalized. Okay? So they have means to bribe to cross the border. The last one who came, case number 20, after we had counted and we were almost celebrating, somebody hired a truck, got into the truck merchandise, and was able to be dropped in Kampala. And he knows the number to call. When you get in Kampala, call 912. The ambulance will pick you where you are. So that's the danger I'm talking about, that it's a leaking roof. However much we mop the floor, it will still remain wet. So the only solution we have is for the MOU, next slide, which we have signed with the government of Congo to allow our health workers to go and intervene in the area. You see all those risks and routes. They are all closed, even if all the whole of East Africa is at risk. Next slide, please. I have run out of time. So our mitigation plans include working with the Congo to contain the disease at source by allowing our health workers to go, give laboratory services. The laboratory team in Aru is just adjacent to Arua. So our team set camp there. Today was their first working day. Yesterday was integration. So we are sure, even if we got cases in Arua, we can treat them in their country so that we are off the calendar of counting in Uganda. Government, the president has also directed, we set up 4 stages. We shall have 4 treatment units in Congo to support where the epidemics are. And the next group will be there shortly. For security reasons, I can tell you they will be there in the next 24 hours, but they are en route. Let's go to the next slide. So we need to talk to the health and MPs from those districts. There are 37 high-risk districts. I hope my member of parliament is here. I've been searching the room. I don't see you, sir. But next slide, please. This is where we need your support. You see all those districts in red. If you represent any of those districts, we want to encourage you to join our treatment and response team. The response team is chaired and led by the National Task Force, chaired by the Vice President. So once we call and we want to share, and Dr. Ayume is organizing to meet you and take you through what our asks are as Minister of Health. And I hope if there are other reasons, you can kindly reach to him. But Home District, Kasese, Bundibujo, Arua, there is no Ebola, but we are taking what we call the no regret approach. We want to give you more information because we are the same people across the border. Your garden is here, your house is on the other side. So we need to make sure we close all the potential loops. Final slide. We had a cross-border meeting. You can see Uganda Director General and the Director General of Congo exchanging the memorandum of understanding in the lower picture there. In Congo, we signed an MOU, and that was the team. I was glad I'm one of the team, but don't list me. So we've worked on a cross-border, and I've given you an update. Let's go to the next slide. Next time when you give me more time, I'll take you through what the MOU entailed. Next slide. So finally, when is Uganda going to be declared Ebola-free? This is my very final slide. My wish and yours is that it should be tomorrow. But a country is declared by WHO after 42 days upon discharging the last positive Ebola patient or case. As we speak now, we still have 2 people in our treatment center. I wish they had not crossed back to this country because we had started counting. And we say it's 42 days based on the incubation period, which I talked about. Honorable Chair of the session, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak to your colleagues.
Thank you so much, Dr. Daniel. Okay, Honorable Minister wants to add something, especially. It's very important. Let's allow him to.
Colleagues, I'm sure most of you have been asking about vaccines for Ebola. Now, the vaccine that's available by the World Health Organization is for the Ebola Zaire strain. We don't have vaccines for Bundibujo and Sudan. But right now at Uganda Virus Research Institute in Entebbe, we have been doing trials for Ebola Sudan, and that takes about 6 months. So then any time that the vaccine for Ebola Bundibujo will be ready is probably in 6 months' time. But I also want to tell colleagues that there's cross-referencing between the Ebola Sudan trials, and they're showing some positive results with the Ebola Bundibujo strain. So I think there is hope, but let us not start celebrating. When the results are out, we shall let you know whether the vaccine that is coming out for Ebola Sudan would be able to manage Ebola Bundibujo. So that is the science that I had really wanted to bring across to you. MPs from the districts, Kigezi Parliamentary Forum, Rwenzori Parliamentary Forum, Bunyoro Parliamentary Forum, and West Nile Parliamentary Forum, we shall have a one-day retreat on Ebola to take you into the deeper science. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Ebola team, Ministry of Health, and honestly, your Ebola team, without you, we are not safe. Dr. Daniel is saying it's not Ebola team. Anyway, that's a joke, but we would like to thank you so much for doing everything you could to save this country from that epidemic. Honorable members, I know we are all tired. And I'm not going to take 1 minute here because we have finished all the presentation, and All your questions to the presenters will be sent to you in the forum. We have given all the presenters the contacts of our ICT team. You bear with us because I feel that we have to be human enough.
There's one on Ebola.
On that, I want to draw the thread back together that we have moved this afternoon from women in parliament, special interest groups, where even more broadly to the security of the workers, old age, and to the security of citizens. That's health, HIV response, and Ebola. I think this afternoon we have rounded around all the essential circle of life. And I would like to thank you for really making us not to address empty chairs. We cannot take it for granted. And you, the presenters, we mounted a lot of pressure. We were well aware you wanted to give us more information, but we started the day late. So our afternoon session also started late. But I would like to thank you so much. Honorable Laura, Honorable Ndeze, Mr. Patrick Ayota, Dr. Vincent, Dr. Daniel, and our dear Minister for Health, Charles Ayume, for giving us your time and knowledge. I would also like to thank my sister, Dr. Ruth, for being with me in this panel to ensure that we stay to its conclusion. As we conclude, we are going to conclude with a health break. Before you jump in the buses and your vehicle, there's something organized for you to energize you. Maybe the energy levels have gone down. And this is the end of our program for day 4 of this induction. I wish you all the best. I thank you for giving us audience in this program. I say this for God and our dear country. Have a good evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Linda, for leading us through this evening session of the presentations. Just a few quick notes, Honorable members. You're encouraged to come in very big numbers for tomorrow's closing day of the induction. The panelists who presented this afternoon kindly come to the fore for a group photo. Dr. Vincent and Dr. Daniel, please come up for a group photo. Honorable members, the transport to Parliament will depart from the main parking. The transport to Parliament will depart from the main parking that is next to the exit of this area, the Munyonyo Resort. Honorable members, you're invited to fill the monitoring and evaluation forms for day 3 and day 4. Our team put the QR codes on around the tables. So you're invited to scan that code before you leave this evening and fill day 3 and day 4 of the evaluation form kindly. And for the presentations, the ICT team has been gracious enough to set up the information on the workspace of your iPads. So for the presentations, just access them on your iPads and you'll get each and everything that has been presented today. And they will keep updating them as the presentations continue, especially tomorrow. Honorable members, tomorrow the Speaker, Deputy Speaker and Clerk will be here to close the last day of the induction. So you're invited to be here in big numbers. As usual, the program will begin at 8:30, so you're also invited to come early. And finally, as you head towards the parking, you're invited to grab a cup of tea and a snack before you head out. Thank you very much and have a good evening. Honorable members, in case you misplaced a green digital tasbir, you can pick it from me. I have it with me. In case you misplaced a green digital tasbir, you can pick it from here. Honorable members, after tomorrow's program and after the Deputy Speaker has closed us off, we shall have a cocktail here at the Munyonyo Resort. The venue will be communicated to you, so please do be present all the way up to the final stage of the closing ceremony. We will have a cocktail to close the 5-day-long event as a success. Thank you very much and good night.